sharing a client experience. This one was from a while back. A woman came into the clinic to see us, and the reason she came in to see us was she had a fear of flying, insomnia, and menopause. And the reasons she came in is her and her husband had a 4 month trip planned to Bali, and it was 5 weeks out, and she was having thoughts of canceling. Now you can imagine the preparation uh, that they would have had to put into a 4 month trip, let alone just canceling any trip. So it was a quite serious thing to cancel at this point, with 5 weeks till the trip was scheduled. And we were asked to help her with it and to see whether or not we could shift her thought processes about her fear of flying. So I suggested we have 4 sessions. It's for 4 weeks, and she'd come in once a week, and we addressed these issues. And we had a session, our first session, and when she first came in for the first session, she looked really frail, tired, exhausted, and pale. Just did not look like someone who had just retired and full of life and ready for her next chapter in her life. So the benefits that Reiki can add to these things is it'll help with depression, anxiety, stress, guilt, shame, physical pain. It helps with anything going on physically in your life. And the idea with this was to help her with her thought patterns. Energy work also can help you with repetitive negative thought patterns around something. So sometimes when we're desiring to adjust something in our life or change our life in a certain way, we can do things to assist us with that make us feel better. But there is other components to it as well. You can have a session, you can have an energy session, or you can go to a spa and you could feel really good, and you're feeling really good in that moment, and it could last a day or two, but then you find yourself in your life, and then quickly you feel like you're back to where you were before, and you just don't feel good. And so something that's really important is that you can adjust the way you feel through doing something to feel better. You also have to adjust your life too. And I say adjust, I don't say change, because it's not just this big change that you need to make in your life. It is an adjustment. And in this case for her, it was the stories. It was the stories she continued to tell herself. It's the stories she continued to tell everyone in her life, her mother, her parents, her husband, her children, her friends. She said she had tea groups where they would all go and they would gossip, and of course the main topic for her whenever she would talk was her fear of flying, insomnia, and menopause. So you could see how much this had a hold on her life. And my suggestion during the first session was that she has to adjust her conversations that she has with people to assist in the energy work. So in the session, we helped her feel calm and peaceful and free of anxiety. And my suggestion was to attempt to adjust these conversations, to remove these conversations from her everyday routines, and so we can kind of cut the flow around this idea that this fear of flying. So she went away after the first session, and then she came back for the second one, and she was kind of down on herself, and I asked her what was going on, and she said she tried to remove this from her conversations in her daily life, and she said she couldn't. So she admitted that she was so used to talking about this thing, and that it just fell out of her mouth when she would talk to people. And she said it was almost like the only thing she talked about. She would talk about it with her husband, her mother, her children, her friends, constantly. And she obviously would talk to herself about these things and affirm these things in her life. So I said, it's fine. I said, at least you're aware now about how much you bring this stuff up in your life. So we had another session. We helped her feel calm and free of anxiety. And she went out and she attempted to remove these conversations from her life. And so she came back for the third session, and I asked her how she was doing. She literally had a totally different jump in her step. She said she did really good, and it wasn't so good, but she said she made it 2 whole days without bringing these things up in conversations. But then she found herself back to these same old stories. And to me, that's a win. To me, she became more aware how powerful this story is in her life, and she also proved to herself that she could shift out of those stories. So we had another session. We helped her feel calm, free of anxiety, and free of stress. And she left feeling amazing. And she was determined to succeed this time. So the fourth time that she came into the clinic, I was talking to another client, and we were finishing up, and we were just in the foyer, and I saw her walk into the clinic, and she was talking to the woman at the desk, and I overheard her conversation. The woman at the desk said, "How are you doing?" And first of all, she was glowing. She was her skin was glowing. She just was really energetic, and she was smiling, and I overheard her talking to the lady at the front desk, and she was telling her that she went out to buy dresses for her trip to Bali. I mean, right there, that's a win. I mean, we could have just said, bye for that day and not even had a session, because she already won. We knew that something shifted so much that this is kind of the new version of her. And so we had a session, and she told me how good she was feeling, and she had no more fear around flying, and she was fine with it, and she was sleeping well. And so it's so interesting that all it took was her to tell a new story, for her to feel comfortable in telling this new story. Almost as if at first she felt like she was lying to herself and lying to other people because it didn't feel authentic. And then she made these new stories feel authentic in her life. So it's interesting, if there's something that you're looking to shift in your life, adjust your life in a certain way, and you've done certain things to feel better, but yet you seem the same old things repeating over and over and over again in your life. Well, ask yourself, how do you talk to yourself on a regular basis? How do you talk to the people you're always around? It's one thing to talk to strangers in a different way, but it's the people that are regularly in your life. These are the ones we tell the same old story to over and over and over again. So ask yourself, is this new version of myself, is this adjusted version of myself, the desire that I would like in my life, do I tell stories that match this version of myself, or do I tell stories that match this old version of myself, the one with the limiting beliefs? So that's a good thing to ask internally, and then you can ask yourself, well, how can I get creative with telling my new story?